Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the April 5th, 2022 Litchfield Planning Board meeting. Would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
How we do that? I feel like I could kiss it.
And it looks like the folks whose terms were up have reinstated themselves. And I think, Sam, you have been joined as a regular member. Kate and Ron, I believe, have continued. Oh, you're doing it tomorrow? Okay. All right. Okay. Are you going to, so I guess, are you going to be able to vote? I don't.
Yeah, I think he stays on until he's replaced.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. So we do have a quorum, and we don't have any alternates. So I'll begin with the roll call. Michael Proto, Chair.
Kate Stevens, Vice Chair.
Ron Stevens, member.
Kimberly Queen and Selectman's Rep.
Sam Terrell, member.
James Buffetti, member.
Curtis Sampson, member.
Okay. And we have Jay Minkara from our PC here this year, our circuit rider, and Joan McKibben, our administrative planner. All right. First order of business, public input on non-agenda items. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak about anything that's not listed on the agenda for this evening? Okay. All right. Seeing none, I will close public input on non-agenda items. And we will go to the first order of business, which is Wilson Farms, Inc., 144 Charles Bancroft Highway, expedited review of farm site plan for 62 Charles Bancroft Highway, 147 and 153 Charles Bancroft Highway, tax map 1, lot 17, tax map 6, lots 30 and 31. Applicant seeks to improve their operations by proposing to upgrade their existing fuel storage systems. Conditional use permit in the Aquifer Protection District for the new fuel storage systems to be located at both project locations will provide covered storage for the fuel tanks and a concrete loading pad for farm equipment when fueling. The applicant also seeks a voluntary merger of lots at tax map 6, lot 30 and 3, 147 and 153 Charles Bancroft Highway. Is the applicant present this evening?
Yes, we are.
Okay, can you introduce yourself to the board?
Sure can. My name is Brent Cole with Granite Engineering. Here with me tonight is Jeff Merritt from my office, as well as Andy Perlman from Prunier and Perlman, and the Wilson Farm team, which is Scott Wilson, Lauren Wilson, and Keith Marshall, which I haven't seen yet today. So it's maybe just the Wilson family. We're here tonight for multiple applications, including 2 properties. I'm assuming you all are familiar with Wilson Farm and their agricultural operation. They own multiple properties up and down Charles Bancroft. The 2 properties that are before you tonight are 147, 153, and 66 Charles Bancroft. The first one I'd like to talk about is actually the one that's not on the screen. Mr. Minkar, if you could go to one more sheet down. Yep. This is probably the more complicated one. So might as well get that one out of the way. This is 147 and 153 Charles Bancroft. And this was actually in front of this board 6 months ago for an agricultural storage building. What the applicant's looking to do is renovate their existing fuel storage area into 2 separate fuel storage areas on the properties spread out across Charles Bancroft. The first one being here. The existing fuel storage area, which there's photos in the packets that we gave you guys, is across the street, and it'll be relocated to this area. In order to do so, the first step with these 2 properties is to do a lot merger. So these 40-acre plus properties will become one large 90-acre property. The reason we're doing that is because the property line that ran down the middle really frustrated the Wilson Farm working area. It bisected right across the working area for the Wilson Farm. So in order to put this fuel storage here, the two properties have to be merged in order to extinguish that mutual property line that was hindering the ability to develop where the fuel storage wants to be. So what they're looking to put in is a 20 by 15 fuel storage shelter that is over two 500-gallon fuel storage tanks. These fuel storage tanks will be used to fill farm equipment that will be used on premise. The fuel storage tanks will be put on a concrete pad, and all typical state compliant regulations will apply regarding monitoring, labeling, all the different safety measures that are required, including secondary containment. And those cut sheets should be included in your packet as well, and will be given to the Litchfield Fire Department to make sure that they're in compliance with local codes. The permits that we seek tonight on this property are a expedited farm permit, a site plan, and a conditional use permit because most of Litchfield is in the aquifer. Therefore, this use is required to receive a conditional use permit. The next property is down the street further. And if you could go back to the first sheet, this is also another large property and was before you again 6 months ago for an agricultural storage building. They're looking to do another fuel storage area here on the opposite side of the roadway in the area that they've recently developed for the agricultural storage. Same thing, two 500-gallon tanks on a pad with a shelter on it and all state compliant measures implemented. The major difference is we're not doing a lot merger, but two of the same permits, conditional use permit, as well as the expedited farm permit. That is basically the two projects in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? The board.
So
James?
I'm not sure I understand the rationale for the lot merger.
So it's the lot merger, the property line obviously runs down the middle of the property, and where the applicant would like to put the fuel storage area, the fuel storage shelter would be put in a setback. Therefore, they would have to move the fuel storage area to an area that they don't necessarily desire as much. Therefore, they have the right to merge the two properties and remove that property line. These two properties act together. They always have. They have buildings that are fairly close to the mutual property line already. The building inspector had recommended the lot merger because there's electrical lines that cross the property line because they really serve the same use and they've always been in the same ownership. So it actually cleans up a little bit of the conflictions here. And it was recommended by the building inspector and we took it up on it.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So you submitted an application, and I see that you had also had some waiver request forms that were submitted.
We did, and we were actually told by Mr. Mankara that the waivers are not necessary. They were strucken from the requirements with some.
And I'm assuming this is the expedited review for farms, so buildings that we had instituted in our site plan regulations. Exactly. Okay. All right. Joan, has all of the abutters for this project been notified?
Yes.
And all the fees have been paid, I assume?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I know this is a little bit different. I know I've been talking to Jay today, how we're going to do this. We have to deal with it step by step. First with the voluntary merger, then with the conditional uses and the performance standards, and then we can go into acceptance of the site plan, if my understanding that's your, okay. I have a question in terms of the voluntary merger, and I didn't see anything in my materials.
I have it.
The affidavits and from the parties?
The
And
deeds,
are there any mortgages on the property?
There are no mortgageable property.
Okay, all right. Now, this would be under the state statute 674 39:39A, voluntary merger. All right. So we would have to vote to approve the merger of the properties. And that's the first step to this. And then once we do that, then we can get into the conditional uses. I don't know what the will of the board is on this.
I also have the warranty deeds on the properties.
Okay, great. One quick thing before I even get into that. Attorney Perlman, you had submitted a letter, which I have here. I was just curious because you said that this application was being filed under protest. And I know that the code enforcement officer is here, Mr. Blackwell, and I'll certainly let him speak to this as well. Maybe you could give us a little background in terms of what's going on. I know that you're looking to get this conditional use permit to permit the storage tanks in the Aquifer Protection District. And my understanding is that Mr. Blackwell has informed you that the exemption did not apply to the proposed fueling stations. So I guess maybe we can discuss that just briefly.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you. Andy Perlman, Fruity and Perlman here on behalf of the applicant Wilson Farm Incorporated. Mr. Chairman, I submitted that letter just to have it on the record. We believe that the exemption from the Aquifer Protection District does apply to the farming activities, does apply to the fueling stations. But at the same time, we don't want to make a big deal about it. It's not, we're not going to contest it. We submitted the conditional use permit applications because it's farming season. We got to get in the ground. We got to get fueling. We got to get moving. So that's just for the board's information, but we're not really raising it tonight.
Mr. Blackwell, is there any issues or concerns? It says filed under protest. I didn't know. Is there anything that we should know, or I guess the board, in making this decision tonight?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that, because when I read that, I was like, oh, okay. So there's a difference of
No,
opinion.
thank you.
Just
No, we
wanted to-
appreciate that.
Got it. Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll vote on, well, I mean, does anybody have any other questions from the board? Okay. So we have to vote on the voluntary merger. Are we in favor of that? And looks like we have a notice of voluntary merger, which has been handed to me.
That's the document that if the board were to approve it, you would sign, and that's what would get recorded.
Got it. Okay, so this basically, for the record, notice of voluntary merger. Know all persons by these presents that Wilson Farm Inc., located at 144 Charles Bancroft Highway in the town of Litchfield, county of Hillsborough, state of New Hampshire, are the owners of certain contiguous parcels of land located in the town of Litchfield, New Hampshire, which are more particularly known and described as follows. Town of Litchfield, tax map 6, lot 30, and all the land encompassed and shown as recorded in the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds as plan number, that is, I guess, none. For further reference, see book 2893, page 645. Town of Litchfield, tax map 6, lot 31, and all the land encompassed and shown as recorded in the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds as plan number, parentheses, none. For further reference, see book 2359, page 86. Now, therefore, the owner aforesaid, having requested the voluntary merger of the above described lots of parcels of land pursuant to the provisions of New Hampshire RSA 674:39-A, the town of Litchfield does hereby merge said parcels of land. Henceforth, the parcels of land merged aforesaid shall not be separately transferred without subdivision approval. Do I have a motion to approve the voluntary merger?
So moved.
Second. I have a second. I have a motion to Kate, second by Ron. Do I have further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the voluntary merger, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0, 0. Okay. And today is the 5th, correct?
Till midnight.
Okay. And I don't know, Kate, do you want to be a witness?
Sure. If that counts.
All right, so that takes care of the voluntary merger part. Now we have to deal with the conditional use requirements, which is found in our zoning regulations under section 1254 and the performance standards, which is under 1256. So what I'm going to do is probably go through these. So in granting the conditional use of approval, we have to determine that the proposed use is not a prohibited use defined under section 1254. I'm going to assume that for purposes this project that you're proposing a new farming fuel station to replace the existing fuel station that is associated with the agricultural use, and that the use is permitted as agricultural development under 1253 .b. This use is not a prohibited use defined under section 1254.00. That is correct, I assume.
That is correct.
Okay. That's A. B, the use will be in compliance with applicable performance standards of section 1256 of the zoning regs. So the proposed use for this project will be in compliance with the applicable performance standards of section 1256, which we'll get to in a moment. These standards have been outlined and discussed below. Okay. The use is in compliance with all applicable local, state, and federal requirements. I assume that is correct.
Yes.
All right. So that is what is needed for granting of the conditional use approval by the planning board. And we have performance standards which apply to all uses that are in the aquifer protected district exempt under section 1258. For any use that will render impervious more than 15% or more than 2,500 square feet of any lot, whichever is greater, a stormwater management plan shall be prepared, which the planning board determines is consistent with stormwater management and erosion and sediment control handbook for
Just
urban.
to save time, Mr. Chair, if I could, A, B, and C don't apply.
They don't. Okay, I'm sorry. Then I will cross that out. So we'll go to D. So all regulated substances stored in containers with a capacity of 6 gallons or more must be stored in product-type containers on an impervious surface designed and maintained to prevent flow to exposed soils, floor drains, and outside drains in accordance with the environmental wetlands 421. So am I assume that the fuel will be stored in 2 500-gallon Highland tanks specifically designed for fuel storage? Is that correct?
Correct.
And the tank will be equipped with a leak detection gauge, emergency vent, primary vent, and vent alarm. The tank will sit on an impermeable concrete pad in order to prevent soil contamination. All of these implemented precautions will be implemented in accordance with the environmental wetlands 421 specifications for the fuel tank system can be seen in attachment A. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Section E, facilities where regulated substances are stored must be inspected bi-weekly by the facility owner or his designate and must be secured against unauthorized entry by means of doors and/or gates, which are locked when authorized personnel are not present. So the fuel storage facility will be inspected bi-weekly by the facility owner or their designate. When authorized personnel are not present, the fuel storage system will be secured against unauthorized entry by means of a perimeter fence with a gate, lock, and key. Is that also correct? Okay. G, outdoor storage areas for regulated substances must be protected from exposure to precipitation, must be located at least 50 feet from surface water or storm drains, at least 75 feet from private wells and outside the protective well radius of public water supplies in accordance with Environmental Wetlands 421. So the fuel storage facility will provide covered storage for the fuel tanks. Specifications of this covered storage can be seen in attachment A. The fuel storage facility will be located at least 50 feet from the storm drains and surface water, as well as 75 feet away from private wells and outside the protective well radius of public water supplies in accordance with Environmental Wetlands 421. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Section H, secondary containment must be provided for outdoor storage of regulated substances in an aggregate of 275 gallons or more on any particular property in accordance with Environmental Wetlands 421. Secondary containment for each 500-gallon Highland tank will be provided in accordance with the Environmental Wetlands 421. Each tank will be placed in Ultratech Ultra 275 containment sump, preventing the contamination of soil in the instance of a leak. Specifications of this secondary containment system can be found in attachment A. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I, containers in which regulated substances are stored must be clearly and visibly labeled, must be kept closed and sealed when material is not being transferred from one container to another. The proposed fuel storage system is designed so that fuel will be stored in clearly and visibly labeled tanks. These tanks will be kept closed and sealed when the fuels are not being transferred from one container to another. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And finally, J, whenever a business is required to notify the Department of Environmental Services of a release, including but not limited to the requirements of environmental wastewater 4112, environmental, is that WM, is that waste management? Is that what that means? Jay? Yeah, okay, waste management. 1403, the town of Litchfield Emergency Management or the EM director must also be notified. Furthermore, the EM director must also be notified when a business notifies the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services of a failed tank tightness set. When required and in accordance with the environmental, with the environmental waste management 4112 and environmental waste management 1403, both the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services and the town of Litchfield Emergency Management Director will be notified. Both the New Hampshire DES and town of Litchfield Emergency Management Director will also be notified if a fuel storage tank fails the required tank tightness test, and that I assume is correct. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to add or stuff that I covered for the conditional use?
I think that covers it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Why are you choosing, you said in both locations, you're going to do two 500-gallon tanks instead of one 1,000-gallon tank. What's the reason for that? Or did I misunderstand? Is it going to be two 500 in two separate locations?
You are correct. It is two 500-gallon tanks.
In each site?
Correct. Mr. Wilson, do you know why?
The regulations are such that you have to have two tanks rather than just one 1,000. It's over 600 gallons. There's a regulation about it.
That's what I was
So
reading. So
everybody produces, even the town of Litchfield has 500-gallon tanks.
Okay.
There was regulation that if it's over 600, something happens, and so we didn't even bother.
and that's why I was curious.
Yeah,
'Cause
everybody puts in 500-gallon tanks.
Okay.
It triggers a different level at the state. If you go over 1,300 gallons,
1320 something.
in aggregate, then you'll trigger that same permit. So I think a lot of people try to stay underneath that threshold.
That's what I was. I just wanted.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, that was Scott Wilson, the president of Wilson Farm.
Okay, thank you. And I believe we were submitted this Highland tank, the picture. This is what the tanks are going to look like, I assume.
Got it. Yep.
Okay. And I think everybody got a copy of that. Okay.
When the leak detection gauge trips, who's notified? That I don't know.
So it would be Keith Marshall first, and we have a farm manager who lives on premises, Claire Smith, and both of them, myself, we have all alarm systems in the farm everywhere as it is.
Okay, so it would go to the individual
believe it.
buildings or
Excuse me?
So an alarm would go off like in the building or something that somebody would be working in, or on your phones? Okay, great.
We have heat alarms for the greenhouses, that type of thing.
Perfect.
Yeah, that was my initial reason why I was asking about the 500 versus the 1,000, because I was under the impression that going above 500, the type of alerts that need to be put out and the type of warning systems you'd have would have to be a different level. So that's why I was trying to understand if that's something that you guys are trying to do.
Understood.
That packet you had with the picture of the tank, can I look at that?
Yep. Do you want to hand that?
Sure. Black and white or color?
You have the choice, I guess.
So the bi-weekly inspections, does the state require that be recorded or documented somewhere? Are there records kept of that?
So the state doesn't require it. It's actually, it's a town requirement.
Okay.
From what the town requires, we'll have to speak with Mr. Blackwell, the building inspector, and the fire department, but it'll be up to Wilson Farm to keep records.
Okay. And does the town require some sort of record keeping and reporting of the bi-weekly inspections? Okay, so it's all done on the honor system.
Yes.
Okay.
Can be monitored, maybe. So,
But they don't keep records. How do you monitor it?
we're working with them on a regular basis anyway, so I'm in touch with Keith Marshall.
Okay.
He's on the farm.
Okay.
So,
We had considered on a different application, or at least we haven't seen the application yet, but I think there was we could require an annual inspection report. Is that right? That you said about the gas station before, we could require some sort of annual report to the town.
And we felt it was necessary as a condition of approval. Yeah.
I don't know. if
The gas
that's
station though
something
is a much higher volume, so that is a higher level.
that- Okay. So maybe it's not necessary at this volume.
Just looking at these tanks, they're showing them on skids. Are they going to be fixed in place, or is there potential that during the winter season, the off season, you might take them in to do any maintenance to them, any cleaning of them, or are they going to be in a fixed? Yeah, and I apologize because I didn't fully go through all the Q&As on here. Are they like a double lined tank?
all double up.
Yep.
The highest industry standard you can get right
Yeah.
Yes.
And the specs were reviewed by the fire department.
They were.
Oh, okay.
And what was that was,
We just had a brief comment. I'll just quote.
Yep.
Storage units provided by the supplier meet the national standards for containment, signage, venting, and delivery.
thank you. Okay. So I think we've, all right, oh, actually, I think what we have to do is vote, I believe, on the conditional use and the performance standards that I went through, and approve those, and then we can go to the next step. So unless anybody has any more questions or concerns, I guess we can move, I would, entertain a motion to approve the conditional use requirements for this project, as well as the performance standards under 1254 and 1256 of our zoning regulations.
Mr. Chairman, I would just clarify that there are two conditional use applications before you for the two separate lots.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, okay.
You could
So
take
tax
them-
map lot 17, which one?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, voluntary merger map 6 lot 30 and 147 and 153.
You could take them in one motion if you wanted to, or in two motions, whatever you prefer.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to
Yeah.
approve both the conditional use permits.
okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Curtis. Do I have any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 7-0-0. Okay. Now we can move into acceptance of the application.
The site plan, yes.
Yes, of the site plan. So does anyone want to? Well, obviously, we were told that all fees have been paid, all abutters have been notified, which is our standard review for acceptance. We have all of the required documentation, the plans that we need. This is an expedited review of obviously the agricultural piece. And there, I assume there is no regional impact to this project. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
So move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Ron, second by Kim. Do I have further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the acceptance of this application for Wilson Farm, 144 Charles Bancroft Highway, 62 Charles Bancroft Highway, 147, 153 Charles Bancroft Highway, tax maps 1, lot 17, tax map 6, lots 30 and 31, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 7-0-0. Okay, so the application has been accepted. And so I guess you have anything else that you want to add or you want to talk about in terms of?
No, I think we're good, Mr. Chairman. Brent covered our points. I think it's appropriate to open up to public comment and maybe answer any questions after that.
Okay. All right. Jay, do you have any comments? I know
I don't. I think the application meets the requirements. It's pretty straightforward, and it's obviously very minor in nature.
Okay.
No real impacts to surrounding properties or traffic.
Mhm. Okay. At this time, I'll open it up to public comment. Is there any members of the public that wish to comment on the project or the application this evening? Okay. All right, hearing none, I'll close public input and I'll bring it back to the board. What is the will of the board? Do we want to approve? Do we want conditions with this site plan? It is agricultural. It's part of our expedited review. What are you thinking?
Well, going back to what Kate was saying about being able to, even if it's once a year, just have maybe somebody from the fire department or from the town be able to inspect the site to make sure there's no issues with it. I mean, if that's an option,
Yeah.
I think it would behoove the town to have that in there.
I wasn't sure if it was necessary since it's, like they said, since it's
I think with the
relatively small
smaller
amount.
amounts, I don't think it would be required by law. With the smaller size tanks, I think that's a way you can avoid that. I don't know. I haven't read all of the law, but I'm assuming by the smaller sizes, that would circumvent that. So it might behoove us just to put something in there at least just once a year, maybe once every 2 years. The tanks are fairly new. They're double lined. I don't see them leaking very often unless something was punctured. But
Okay. Because it does say, I mean, the fuel storage facility will be inspected bi-weekly by the facility owner or their designate. So did you want to conditionally approve it to a bi-weekly, I mean, or biannually or monthly or?
I wouldn't think we should do something monthly. I mean, there's going to be probably, I don't know if there's a cost associated to that. I don't know what it takes
So-
to the fire.
Probably biannually then, or I mean, not but annually, every year.
I don't want to add an extra cost, but I do think we should have something there just to be on the safe side.
We would have no objection to that.
Okay. Everyone good with that? Okay, we can make that a condition of approval that there'll be an annual inspection by town official. Most likely will be Mr. Blackwell, I assume the building inspector. we'll do that probably. Okay. Any other conditions?
Mr. Chairman, if I may jump in.
Yeah.
On your standard conditions of approval that Jay has on his memo.
Yeah.
These are site plans that don't get recorded, so we would not be providing a Mylar. The Mylars are what gets to the registry.
I guess also subject to, other than the issue with the Mylar,
Sure.
all other general approvals that we usually in the site plan
Standard
will be
conditions.
the standard conditions. Okay. With those conditions in mind, I'll entertain a motion to approve conditional approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kate, seconded by Curtis. Do we have further discussion? All right, all those in favor of conditionally approving of this expedited site plan review of the Wilson Farm site plan, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 7-0-0. Okay,
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Too.
Pass that to Andy. Coming up.
Okay.
Recording number.
Got it.
Ron, Ron, have those two papers back for the file. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
Okay, this is for you for April 19th.
That was easy.
Yeah. Has a little twist to it, but yeah, it's not too bad.
Let's see the plan.
I think, yeah, I think, oops, I think. Got off there.
All right, so the next item on the agenda, Corning Farm at River's Edge, application for 66 three-bedroom townhouses. Units are proposed to be 16 four-unit buildings of multifamily housing on a 39.6 acre parcel at 540 Charles Bancroft Highway, tax map 22, lot 14. The existing buildings are proposed to be removed except for the existing house, which will be converted into a two-family unit. Owners, Corning Farm at River's Edge LLC, applicant DAR Builders, Reginald Moreau. Application continued from March 1st, 2022. Is the applicant present? And if you guys want to come forward and introduce yourselves.
Yes, my name is Eric Mitchell. My office prepared these plans, and the applicants are here as well. The status of the project since we last met, there was a meeting with New Hampshire DOT, which town reps did also attend. And the purpose of that, as I understand it, was to go over what, if anything, may be done with Corning Road, either now or in the future, with the intersection that's there. Jay can speak to this, but it's my understanding that based on our traffic report that was discussed at the last meeting, the intersection of Corning Road is not good, but we are not making it worse. And what the state had said is that they're not going to require improvements to be made to the Corning Road intersection because of this particular project. But it doesn't mean that down the road, things may not, that things might, it doesn't mean that they won't get done in the future if there's, if it's warranted. What they did suggest and ask that we do is to give a 15-foot wide road widening easement so that if they did have to either put a bypass lane or do anything down in the future, they would have the ability to do that. So we have provided that 15-foot easement along our entire frontage so that the state could do improvements and or maintenance in that area. In addition to that, we have added a 15-foot wide sidewalk easement from our southerly access point intersection down to the Moores Falls town property. And we would be constructing a 6-foot wide sidewalk there. That particular sidewalk, as we're showing it, is outside of the 15-foot state easement, so that in the event there was additional paving or something done by on Charles Bancroft Highway, they wouldn't have to move the sidewalk to move it back. It's actually be put in out of the way. And in addition to that on the plans, we have moved the northerly entrance a little bit to the south, about 50 to 75 feet to the south. It does show on the plans. As was stated, I believe at the last meeting, by moving that intersection to the south, the elevation of Charles Bancroft Highway goes up. So that means that our entrance access road has to go up. And based on the grading in that, it's at least, I think, a 3-foot vertical elevation we would have to go up in order to move it. That requires some additional grading to try to get into our, to stay on our site and not to increase the amount of fill. We have shown that access point being moved up. It does show on the plan. It shows it so it's in between the two houses on the other side of the road. But we still have to do the finished grading of the roadway right there. And I had talked to Lou Karen today, and he understands that the grades in that have to be just edited because of the change in the slope. In addition to that, we did show a addition of a vinyl fence at the northerly side of the property on all of the area where we have double buildings on the ends of the driveways of the turnaround. We provided 8-foot tall vinyl fence and a schedule there so that that would help take care of some of the lighting from going from the driveways into those units from going towards Temple Drive. We've also shown additional landscaping down at the end of those turnarounds to help at least have a more of a visual barrier. We've also added a phasing note. The way the phasing has proposed is that the buildings to be built in the first phase is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which would 1 is the existing house that's there, and 2, 3, 4, and 5 are along the front. Phase 2 would be building 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and 3 would be the remainder units. We have not defined an actual time frame for each phase, but it's meant that that the project itself would not be completely built out all at once. And Reggie Morrow's here from Corning Farm, and he can talk a little bit further about that and the intentions for the phasing if you want. With that, we've also submitted a summary letter of what the improvements that we've changes to the plans that we have made. We have made a request that if the board to give consideration of a conditional final approval of the plan subject to town and staff reports information being satisfied, as well as third-party approvals on that. And we also have, in the event that we are not going to be or that we may be continued, I believe we're coming up close on the 65-day clock. We've agreed to waive that if a conditional final approval is not granted tonight, so that we're not under the board, or we are not under that 65-day clock anymore. I think that the majority of the information that's required on the plan is engineering and planning related. We're still working with the state agencies to final our state permits, which we need to do. So that's the reason why we've asked the board to give consideration for a conditional approval tonight. If there's additional planning issues relative to the board and that kind of stuff, we certainly will discuss those tonight with you. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions?
So last time when we met, we talked about the house, the existing house, and the possibilities of having to do something with Charles Bancroft at Corning. And so it sounds like that you made the decision to keep the house and it can stay where it is, even allowing for the sidewalk and the other allowances for potential turning lane. Is that what it's going to be onto Corning?
What we've shown on the plan after discussion with the board at the last meeting, as well as with DOT and the members there, we are putting a 15-foot easement improvement it's along the entire frontage, but it's going towards the house. We also will be taking down the retaining wall, little retaining wall in front of the house. That'll be coming off as part of this development. The sidewalk, however, in talking to DOT as well as the board at the last meeting, all the residents of the project and the site can walk around on the roads that we have right now.
Mhm.
And if they want to go to the south, they can. So it was suggested to put a sidewalk along Charles Bancroft Highway to the south from the southerly access point.
Oh, I see.
Just for that one little point. So,
I see.
and what we had talked about with DOT is, although having a sidewalk all the way along Charles Bancroft Highway is maybe a good thing,
Mhm.
if they're going to be putting in the future, perhaps a turn lane or a lane where someone can, a bypass lane to get around the people stacking at the intersection, the sidewalk is just going to be in a way. Plus, it's also a maintenance concern for the town, the state will not maintain the sidewalk if it's there. So people walking, the pedestrians and even bicyclists will be able to go along our site itself for the residents that are there. And to the south, they'd be going on an easement, which we would construct a 6-foot wide sidewalk to get to the Moores Falls property.
Okay. So just make sure I understand what you said. So that it's the southern entrance exit from that point until Moores Falls. That will be the only section where there's a sidewalk.
Correct.
Okay. And so if somebody wasn't living in that development but was walking down towards Moores Falls, are you suggesting that they could walk in to the development and use those roads and then pick up the sidewalk at the southern exit?
No, I think
Okay.
that
So you mentioned also bicyclists. So I was just, I was
residents from our project
just residents.
will
So,
be able to go through our site to do what they want, because those are private driveways.
so the people that lived on Temple, for instance, if they wanted to make use of that, they wouldn't have a sidewalk that would take them from close to Temple all the way to Moores Falls. They wouldn't. They'd be on the road until they got to the southern exit. Then they could get onto the sidewalk.
Correct.
If they wanted to. Okay. The other thing is, I got to say, I'm struggling with your statement that this project would not make the traffic worse. That this is not going to do that. I don't. Maybe it's just I don't do these traffic studies, but it doesn't make sense to me that you can add 64 or 66 condominiums with maybe multiple vehicles in each one, that you could have all of these these Amazon delivery trucks and other kinds of trucks coming in and out of there to service the residents, and that amount of traffic would not make that intersection worse than what it already is. That doesn't make sense to me.
I think it's a matter of perspective. Yeah, will there be more cars going to the intersection with this project than there would be without it? Yes, they would. But the amount of increase of cars and vehicles is extremely minimal compared to the amount of cars that are there now. And looking at and talking to the state, as well as when the traffic engineer was here last month, The increase of traffic from our site to the intersection there is not going to make it appreciably worse than what it is. And we're not saying it's good now, it's not. But even in talking to the state, they said, well, there may be a problem there now, but it's not something that they're going to look for this project to have to go try to fix out there. But because we can provide additional right-of-way width or easement width for the future expansion of the road, if and whenever it does happen, they consider that to be a very positive thing. And also relative to the intersection, a lot of the traffic based on the traffic patterns in that is going to head to the north. And our northerly access point, which is going to have the majority of the traffic coming out of it, most of that traffic will head to the north and not go towards to Corning Road. And on the south end, most people, if they're going to be going to the south, they would probably go along our upper entrance and come out to the southerly entrance. Plus, that's also where the mailbox is too, so there may be traffic there. So most of our traffic is heading towards Manchester to the north and not going through Corning Farm. And even though, yes, there is by the number of vehicles, there would be an increase in the vehicles, it does not change the time delays and things there to in a number that you can really count.
But it's not just the vehicles of the residents, right? It's the delivery vehicles, the other kinds of vehicles that will be going in and out of there. I mean, I think we talked about this early on, but the rise of those kinds of delivery trucks, I think, is probably going to be in our future. I don't anticipate a world where we're going to go back where people aren't going to want to order everything that they need, including groceries and simple things online, and it's delivered by whoever. And so, and I don't think those traffic studies took account of that increase in traffic at that section. It maybe just looked at the vehicles of the people who are living there or maybe visiting there, but I think there's more to that than just those vehicles. And if those estimates, I think, are probably based on what's there now. If there was a gas station and convenience store just up the road, south of it, I mean, that's going to definitely have an impact. The people that may be coming out of Corning or coming down Charles Bancroft to get to that gas station, it would be the only gas station on 3A. That's going to also increase the amount of traffic in that section. And I don't think those studies take account of that. They probably just look at what's there now and don't consider future development. And that's probably not your concern as much as it's our concern. But when we look at it and say, are we creating something that is going to be a problem in the relatively short future as these things get built out, and as maybe this is a gas station that's put down there? It seems to me that from a layperson's view, that seems to be common sense, that's going to be a problem. A bad intersection now is just going to be worse. And I think we're kicking the can down the road and creating a traffic problem that we may live to regret.
If I might address just a couple of comments. One, in terms of the amount of traffic that is generated from the project. And again, I'm not a traffic engineer, but generally speaking, I think the number of trips per day per unit is about 10. Those 10 units, those 10 trips per day are coming and going. They include the people who are coming and going to work. So if one person goes to work and comes home, that's 2 trips. And if there's additional people in there, that's there. It also includes anybody who's coming in to deliver goods and services there. It includes friends who are coming over to visit people, coming and going. So the 10 trips per day, which were used for trip generation, do include any uses that may be in that development or any trips come and go, whether it's This isn't going to have a mailman going up and down the long driveway. It's just one central point, but it would be the same if there was, if this was a residential development with mailboxes. That would include the counts of the mailmen coming and going. It includes the delivery trucks. It includes the trash pickups and that kind of stuff. So that 10 trips per day per unit that they use includes not just the residents or their friends, it includes anything that may be coming and going. In addition to that, the traffic counts that get done, they look at the morning and afternoon peak hours, and that's what they look at. So there's a lot of that traffic is coming and going throughout the day, but it's peaks in the morning when people are going, generally people going to work, and it increases in the afternoon in peaks then when people are coming home from work. What the traffic engineer has done, and I don't have the exact amount, but he just doesn't look at the current situation today and what it might be tomorrow. He also projects that forward to it's either 10, 15 years or something like that as to what the volumes will be then. And that's what a lot of his analysis is based on, not just what would be happen the day they start. All units are sold and people out there. He also looks at what it would be like in the future. And so that I do understand that, one car extra out there is more than what there is today, but it doesn't mean that it takes the level of service of the intersection at the peak hours and makes it worse than what it is now. It is not good now. And I don't know if Jay wants to speak to any of this, but even in talking to New Hampshire DOT, they're not, I'm not saying they're not concerned, but they're saying this particular project doesn't change what the improvements would be needed to be done out there because of the project.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
You mentioned that there were 10 trips per unit per day.
That's how the counts are made, yes.
Okay. And there are 66 units. So that comes out to 660 trips per day. That is a large increase in pure math.
It is for the course of the day.
Right.
And I don't have the traffic study here, but the amount of traffic during the day that goes up and down Charles Bancroft Highway is, and I'm not sure what the number is. It's in the thousands, if not tens of thousands of vehicles that are there. What the traffic consultant looks at is peak hours, which peak AM hours and peak PM hours when there's the most traffic coming and going. And that's what they look at to see what the impact that would have on the roadway itself, either for the volume that it's able to carry or for intersections that are nearby. So that we don't have, even though, 660 vehicles, or whatever that number is a ton of trips, half are going in and half are going out. But that's the national standard, and you would do the same if on any subdivision or that you have. And that's why they looked at, and we were asked to look at the intersection there, because just the road itself can handle the traffic. But what happens at the intersection? And I don't know if Jay wants to weigh in for a meeting with DOT or what that was about or not.
I think Ms. Mitchell's characterized the meeting, I think, pretty well, and summarized a lot of what's in the traffic study. I think what would be helpful is if it's the will of the board to continue this application, that we do request that the traffic engineer be here at the next meeting as well. And we also would expect that Mr. Karen will be here as well.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm not, and I don't know how the other members of the board feel, but I'm not inclined to grant any conditional final approvals tonight. I think there's a lot more stuff that needs to be looked into. I think we need to dive into. I'm certainly not opposed to waiving the 65-day clock if that's what you're looking to do. But certainly, I think also, did you just get the new set of plans, Jay? Is that my understanding?
Yes, we just got the new set of plans.
Okay.
And Mr. Karen also has not had an opportunity.
And he hasn't had an opportunity to look at them. So I think we need to do that and have you take a look at them as well. I think it's also important too, if we're going to be submitting plans for this project, that maybe, I mean, how much time ahead, Jay, like 15 days ahead, or what number would be reasonable for you? Do you think?
Certainly ideally, but I would say, and I would say my review is faster
Yeah.
than the engineering review. But
Right.
so, I mean, certainly at least a week.
Yeah.
More is
So
always
if-
better, but at least a week would be helpful.
And I know that there's probably, issues with getting plans in, and, it's just part of the business and everything. But I think it's really important, especially a project of this size and scope, that that Jay and Lou and whoever's involved with looking at this site be able to have the plans ahead of time. So it's really important. I really stress that that we try to make sure that we get the plans come in so that give enough time for Jay and enough time for Lou and whoever else to look at them, review them, and get them to have the opportunity to review them and get us the information that we need. We can certainly continue this hearing, and I think that's probably what we're going to do tonight. Does anybody have anything? Yeah, James.
So, I heard you said that the plan now is to put a white vinyl fence that would be between this project and the abutters on Temple. Is that right?
It would be at the end of the turnaround,
Okay.
not along the property line. It'd be at the end of the turnaround,
Okay. All right.
each turnaround.
And so have you engaged the abutters at all to get some sense of what they think that they would need? I mean, we've talked about how close these units would be to the abutters, and the impact it would have on their properties. I mean, that was a design that you guys came up with, because you're trying to put in a lot of units in this project, a lot. And I am concerned about that density of units in there. But that is a factor. I have said that I'm concerned about the impact on abutters, not just those folks on Temple, but also the people who would. And it sounds like you've moved the northern entrance. I don't know without being there and seeing where it is, how much it impacts the people that live across the street. And are they going to see 600 vehicles coming out? Some of those are going to be at nighttime, some of them are going to be with headlights on. How much they're going to have headlights flashing into the windows? And I don't know if you engage them. At one point, I think when we were out there, that you talked about actually trying to contact the people across the street. I don't know if that's ever happened, but that would be an important consideration for me, in terms of the impact that it has on those people who bought those houses, understanding that they were buying a house with certain qualities, and that is going to be impacted negatively, I think, from their perspective, and how we're going to deal with that.
I think the abutters on Temple, I think there was one that's written a couple different letters. I'm not sure if there's others, but comments that were made is, and I'm paraphrasing, is they don't want to have to look to see any units over there because it's a farm, and when they bought their house, whatever, there was a farm there. They even made mention that, go ahead and put a vinyl fence along the property line, but he said that isn't going to change anything because you're looking over the top of the fence to see, where the units are.
Yeah.
We do meet the setback requirements that are part of the zoning ordinance as to what we have, and we are trying to soften the impact of the site with landscaping and things at the end. There's trees that we're not going to be cutting on the end that are there, but there's no way that we can stop people from looking out their backyard and seeing where these units are any more than somebody on one of these units looking over that way and seeing the other houses. It's not it's not perfect. But also on the entrance of our access road that comes out, we did talk to one abutter, because we were here last year. We talked to one of the butters further to the north. We did move the access point further to the south, but now during our site walk, it was observed that it's now across the street from another person. So then we moved it further down, and the question sort of comes down to, can we have an access point at all? Because obviously lights are going to shine in different places, and any road that you put in is going to be there. But Reggie had his hand up, and I don't know if he wants to speak relative to the traffic and that.
I think we've addressed all the abutters' concerns that have shared concerns with us. Every one of them has been notified that these meetings are ongoing and have been ongoing for quite some time now.
Right.
And all of those that have shared concerns, we've been over and we've met with them and we've addressed all of their concerns. That's the normal process of this, when we go through planning board approvals in all other towns and communities throughout the state, which we do often. That's the normal process in which we use to guide ourselves as to, what the public's interest is and what we need to do to address it. So we have accommodated all of those comments that have come in, inclusive of, setting up screening, even above and beyond the landscape screening that we were originally proposing to try to prevent any of those things from happening. So other than not putting up a structure, we've done everything we can to accommodate that. And, we're following the town's, the town has set up and set forth zoning regulations in which, we intend to comply with. And part of that is density. And we've got a large parcel here, so therefore there are going to be more units than what a smaller parcel would hold on to. But it accommodates it, it works. We've proven that everything that we need to do with regards to the site, at this point, the site can handle it, and we still have excess land that we need to, at some time address, how that's going to be handled for the community and the town, to see what we can do there to try to get the most beneficial thing out of that. But we didn't create the sprawl for the reasoning that we wanted to keep it so that we could have that land. Now, if we think it's too dense, we can always go out and we can use the whole piece. And then, you won't see it so dense. But that's the alternative to doing this. We felt that this was the best way to do it because there is a nice parcel of land that's being used for farming, and it is down along the river. And so we thought that that would be best to try to preserve that versus take that and spread it out over the whole thing so it doesn't quite feel as dense. Those, we've been working to try to accommodate all of what we would consider the best practices for this piece of property. But, I don't think that there's a lot more that we can do there. As it relates to the traffic, I think one of the reasons why we wanted to have this split entrance is to avoid Corning Farms. And to your point, I know that there's some things that, in the future, we don't know where things are going to go with the deliveries and stuff. But the other side to that equation is less people go out to get less things because, or more, they don't go out to get as many things because they get delivered. So the traffic, it's kind of like you're going to have a little bit of give and take there on that end. And, I forgot what it was now. But anyway, I guess that's the key thing. Oh, the other point I wanted to bring up is that it was kind of interesting, even the state and Lou was there and Jay was there. And one of the things that we had discussed, which I found very peculiar, is when we studied the state's traffic counts, they declined prior to COVID. Not during COVID, but prior to COVID. So 3A out here saw a decline, about 2% decline in the amount of traffic that was going down in the last year prior to COVID. So they're reckoning that there's a lot of demographic change with regards to the way traffic is now flowing through Litchfield because of some of the other roads that are being built that are easier for people to pass and go. It's just quicker, it's less bottlenecked. So I don't know if that's going to continue because we've had several years of COVID. We haven't been able to really, see if that's a trend or an odd thing, but it did drop by at least 2% in the year prior to COVID, and from what they were watching and seeing. And they thought that was very peculiar too, and they akin it to all the new roadways going in and those types of things. They think it's a byproduct of that. So I think those facts we should also all be aware of at this point as well, that we are seeing some demographic changes, some good, some bad.
Yeah, so let's talk after that logistics center in Hudson gets going and see what kind of traffic we're dealing with. I think it's going to be a very different picture for Litchfield But, you know, in terms of the density, so, I mean, you designed it so most of the units are close to that side where Temple Road is. And so, sure, I mean, if you owned one of those houses and there was this project going in, you would probably say the same thing. It's like, you know, I bought this house with this beautiful view, and now it's designed so those houses are right up next to you. And so it's like right in your face stuff. And that's fine. You can, I mean, you can design it any way you want, but you know, you have a big parcel there. This is how you chose to do it. And it's, you know, it is a significant impact for the people that bought those houses, and sort of depending on the quiet enjoyment of their property, they bought it for that, probably for that reason, because of the location, which is going to be diminished by this design that has these units, most of them right in their face.
I think you could say that about any development. You know, I live up against the woods now, and if somebody came in behind me, I'd be saying the same thing.
Right.
So I think, you know, we have to make room for new housing. It's part of the process. We have to follow the regulations. We have setbacks that are put in place for that reason. And that's what we do. You know, we follow those guidelines that are written up that the town has approved. And you know, we live within those. It's the only way you can do these things. Otherwise you can't, you know, there's no way you can figure out how to do things. So again, we've made the best attempt. We came in here with several concepts early on. The board decided that this is the way that they wanted it. We initially had houses right up against 3A. Okay, the backs of houses. And they said, we don't want that. We would rather see them, okay, on the other side. We don't want to see the backs of houses again. We redesigned the whole thing. We came up with a couple of concepts. We put them forth in front of the planning board, and we said, what's your preference? And the board shared what their preference was, and that's what we moved forward with. So we've been through that process. We put it all out there, and we move forward based upon the initial contribution that the board gave us. So we're not doing anything that we hadn't already discussed about.
Okay.
You mentioned an alternative of spreading all the units out amongst the whole parcel. How seriously did you consider that?
We did initially, and we were told that that wouldn't be the best thing for the project, to keep it over that way. So that's, like I said, we moved forward with all this expense and engineering because this is the direction the board gave us to go. So we presented several concepts early on, and this is the concept that the board liked and said, this is the one, you know, we'd like to see you move forward with. So that's what we did.
You guys are trying to protect the, I guess that would be the western, southern section under the lines, that farming area right there.
Yeah, that's, if you go down in that area, you know, that's all river frontage.
Yeah.
We're trying to keep away from the river frontage. There was a lot of thought to try to preserve that.
Yeah.
And because it was being farmed, there was some thought that we would like to see that stay and still allow the farm to still work. Our intentions are, you know, we're not doing anything down there, so therefore it can continue. It's not something that we want to do, but if the Conservation Commission, once we, you know, sit down with them and try to decide what the best thing for that area is, as far as how it ends up being utilized or overwritten with any sort of easements or those kinds of things, that's the primary that they want to protect. So that's, and that was brought up very early on, yeah, along with the preservation of the house.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance. It's a balancing act, and I just think that it's important that we keep in mind, you know, the character of the town is critical to the how we perceive, you know, how we want to see this project to be developed. I think it's important to keep that in the back of your mind. But I think too, it's also important that, and I think that these things, I think they need to be scrutinized, and not in the sense that, you know, what we want to try to do is we want to try to make the best result. And it's a balance that has to be considered. And I just think, you know, sometimes you have to take a step back and consider it. I know you had provided us, I mean, at the beginning of the project, I remember there was designs of what the house or the buildings would look like. They had that barn look to them. Is there any way? I mean, I know sometimes when you're looking at plans like that, for example, I mean, yeah, it looks okay. That's what you're going to have. But if there was something more of a visual look that maybe to have us take a look at in terms of what this actually is going to look like on the site, I'd like to see that.
We did supply colored renderings.
I think you
We
did. I remember.
Supply a landscape plan that was colored as well.
Yeah.
So all of those were supplied so that you could see the greenery, so you see how much green there actually is. I know it looks a little bit different when you're looking at on white paper, especially those plans, they would show absolutely no plantings, lighting, or anything like that. But there were plans that were supplied some time ago that did give you the colored renderings for all the landscaping and stuff like that. So you could see what's happening between the units, what's happening alongside the units, what's happening behind the units. Also from the standpoint of what the units would actually physically look like. We gave several different color versions for the board to look at, just color palettes that were suggested that weren't necessarily, final in any nature, but they were supplied. It's for board's preference, if they had something that they preferred to see. And that's not to say that those are the colors that it has to go with, but those are just to give you the ideas of how we're breaking up the units so that they look like they are a 4-unit building, but something that is a farmhouse that has just expanded, which is very typical to the character of what farmhouses do. So that's what we were trying to capture, and the architect was working on in that aspect there. But those were supplied quite some time ago for the board.
Right. Has there been any further, I mean, in terms of architectural design for that has come out of this yet, or is that still in the process? Or
Nothing has been asked for. This is a footprint that we've utilized in other locations, just with a different facade. So we built this in at least 2 other locations in New Hampshire, and have been they've been very well received, both in people that live in the community as well as by the community. So if the board is looking for something in particular from us, I'd be more than happy to address it. But at this point, I'm a little bit without, I can't give good direction if I don't understand what the direction is that I'm being given.
We didn't get digital versions of the most recent landscape plan, but if that is something that you could get me, I know the file size is large, but if you could do it in a Dropbox or whatever, then I could get that to the board for the next meeting so you have a chance
I'd like to
look
see.
at it.
Like I said, I'd like to see what that would look like. I'm just curious.
What were those two? You said you developed the same footprint but just different facades. What were those two?
They're both up in Concord. One of them is called Tuscany Village, and the other one is called the Vineyards. And they have different facades to them. This is completely different. This is more farmhouse.
And
the other ones you'll find are it's the same
decide?
footprint. We just completely changed up the facade.
Did you decide on the colors?
No, it's the problem today, and this is kind of, we're in a real unique environment right now. The problem today is actually a lot of the siding has been discontinued. So we may have to wait to get the colors that we want, because what they've done is because of COVID, they've only ran with the most popular colors on a lot of the things. Like, so for instance, the barn board or the bead board, you see up there, that type of board, they've really restricted down their color palettes. They're starting to come back now, but for a while we could only get like 4 colors in that. White was a popular one, so if we go with white, it's not an issue because the farmhouse has really come back in the design standards. But if we tried to get the red, for instance, for a while there, that was discontinued because it was less popular. So we're going to have to take a look a little bit. If we get it approved one way, then we're going to have to, you have to wait. But it's coming back. It's just that they had to get caught up first before they could, because they were so far behind with their productions.
Okay.
But we're open to whatever color palettes, the town thinks would work best for that community.
Oh, okay. Did anybody have any preferences on there? I prefer the darker colors because I feel like they fade into the background more. But
I think earthy type of colors, sure.
That particular version, and you could go with the white on the barn as well.
Yeah.
I mean, barns tend to be, I guess, more red than white, but it still looks good.
Mm-hmm.
So we take your guidance on that.
Well, I mean, certainly this is, discussion. Nothing is set in stone or anything, but I think, some things, like I said, there's some things to think about. I think you've certainly heard from some board members, their concerns. And certainly, so I think maybe having a traffic person here the next meeting might be appropriate. Also, I think maybe when you come back, focus a little bit more on the landscaping. I'd like to see a lot more of what the landscaping is going to be for this project. And finally, I think also, the imaging that I was just talking about in terms of the buildings and stuff, I think I'd like to see that. So those are things that I'm kind of looking at. I don't know if the board has anything they want added, but that's what I'm sort of looking for. So I think probably the best thing. So I guess when you come in next time, you're going to have some plans for us, I assume, or some revisions or whatever that you have to make to your plans. Have you reached out to, and forgive me, I know it, the fire department at all? And what did they say anything in terms of?
Yeah, so they gave us a recommendation as to the hydrant locations. We reviewed that with them and sent them over a plan. They wanted to make sure everything was following NFPA. After we reviewed what they had sent over, we sent it back with some revisions because there was some redundancy. And so, did we get any comment back yet from?
No,
based on that? Okay.
we haven't, but I think if I may, what they were recommending was 7 hydrants out there. And that what we want to recommend is 4. The requirements of your zoning requires a hydrant to be within, I think, 500 feet along the street to any unit, and the 4 does do that. In addition, all these units will have a sprinkler system. They'll all be sprinkled anyway, so it isn't just the hydrants, they'll be sprinkled. And they have a requirement also for alarms, and those alarms, I believe some of those are going to have to flash on the outside of the building by the garage. So just so that if there's something going on, someone driving by can see that there's alarm that is going on. But those things that we have, it's just the number of hydrants, and it isn't just the number of hydrants. You have to provide all of the properly sized pipes and everything else to go there. So the 4 that we show are much less than the 500 feet to any unit, but all the units will also have a sprinkler system. And we're just waiting for a response back to see what they say about that part. In terms of the plans themselves, the plan sets that you have do show the landscaping plan and the lighting plan, but when we sent a PDF, the lighting plan and landscape plan have so much information on them. The file size is too big to really send, but we did also give a CD with the file on it. So I don't know if the office is able to make extra sets of plans at 1117s, whatever you can see, but the large sets that we gave and also the sets of 1117s do have the landscape plans on them. They have for the last couple of meetings. But you said that you're looking for a color rendering of the site?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's possible to try to see. I just want to see the visualization aspect of it. What is this actually going to look like, when it's completed? Or at least what it's going to look like when you actually see it, scale-wise and, with what you're actually going to be looking at. I'm just curious. I understand what the plans, where the buildings are, but I just want to visualize it. That's all.
Yeah, I know it's rather difficult. I guess we can try to see what I can have for a concept drawn up by the landscape architect. What I could certainly do is, what you're seeing there is very plain and very benign because it doesn't show any plantings in front of the units, which there are plantings in front of the units. What I can ask them to do is to take a plan set like this and to superimpose the the plantings that we're proposing on it, so that way you can see how nice they're gonna look from the elevations on that. And then also, I think maybe what I could try to do is try to get a visual on the entrance, as you come in, how the landscaping is gonna look on the entrances. And then, hopefully we can get a general feel, maybe some streetscape visuals, just looking down the road so that you can get a sense where the buildings are and what the tree's gonna look like along the roadways with the lights and such, to try to give you that, a little better visual on that. I can talk to our landscape architect about creating those. They're usually pretty good at doing that. I think it'll help immensely with the visual. And then they can be species specific on the things too, so you can tend to see that.
Those dwellings that I see there, I see the light brown or gold color in between. Are they set back or are they all connected?
They all are connected. So basically, what you've got the garage portion that protrudes out. This is fairly flush. This section would protrude out. That's fairly flush. It comes out like maybe a foot or 2 feet. These come out further.
So where are the garages?
So this unit, believe it or not, this is divided here. So this is a home.
Facing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
This division from here to here, halfway, is a home and such.
So it is in the back of those. Could you go back to that one?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to show you on the visual, you can kind of see how the facade varies.
Yes.
And then I'll go back to your
All
visual.
Okay, so they're not all flush.
No.
Right.
Okay, that's what I was getting.
Yeah, there's a lot of movement in and out.
But it isn't much more than a couple feet, maybe 4 feet back and forth, just to give some depth. It's not just one straight facade.
Right.
I don't know. Have we seen a drawing yet of how that house would look when it's renovated, the existing house?
We haven't yet. We've had the people living in the home. So basically, our intentions are to basically go in and remove the siding.
Yep.
Remove the metal around all the trim, and to go in and utilize something that's going to be more traditional. Clean it right up, clean up the
Right.
lines.
But I didn't know if there was good, like in following what the chairman was saying, to get the view of how this would look like from the street as you're driving by on 3A. Now that house, because I think initially the house was not going to stay, right? They had talked about moving the house. So now that the house is going to stay and it's going to be close, the road's going to be closer, I think, or at least, well, I don't know. But I'm curious to see how it's going to look on 3A with the house there that's renovated.
Yeah, so just to go back to that point is to, what's going to happen with the street. Initially, the only thing we're going to be doing is removing the wall that's there. And then, of course, we'll be dressing up all the landscaping throughout the project from that road back. The intentions of having that easement put in is so that the state can do whatever they need to do down the road if and when they choose to do such work. So the look, we can certainly take some photos right now of where it is, give it to the architect, ask them to just sketch up something that's going to look, more in tune with what we're going to do for landscaping around that place as well. And it's a very good point, because we can take and capture that as well, because that is an important part of the future. Of what
Right. So I'm trying to get a sense, because that house is pretty close to the road now, and I don't know how close it is, but it's fairly close. But with the easement, I'd be curious just to know what the distance was from the end of the easement to the foundation of the house.
It's a few feet. It's
Few
not,
feet,
it's
yeah.
a few feet. It's not a lot.
Right.
I don't know if it's 10, but it may be a little bit less than that.
Right. So
The easement edge would be very close to the facade of the house.
right. So if they do in the future, if they do decide to do something with that Corning Road area, that you could have that road that is almost right within a few feet of the house, right?
What we talked
And there's no
about,
concerns about that?
There was, we had a lengthy, well, I don't want to say lengthy discussion, but we had quite a discussion about it, quite frankly,
Yeah.
on that. And one of the comments that was brought up is that they had worked in other locations along 3A recently, apparently, where they were able to get everything inside that actual right of way that's already there. And this additional thing that we're giving them more than likely will just be there for a grass area or something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that the road
Oh, I see.
is going to be up against the house. And that was, we had that, quite a discussion on that, if you remember, Jay, on that particular issue. So that was a big concern of mine.
Yeah, right. So do we have an idea of if they did expanded that road, how close the end of the pavement would be to the foundation of the house?
So
No, and we're not likely to because there's no design. And realistically, making improvements to that intersection may involve realignment of Corning Road itself to make it a little bit more of a T. So because there's no design, we really don't know. But what they did request is they simply want an easement across the entire frontage of the property so that they've got the leeway to do what they need to do once they decide what that is. But because there's no design, it's just really hard to say what that's going to look like.
And they've got both sides of the roadway to work with, don't forget.
Yep.
So they, it's probably going to be some give and take,
Right.
for lack of a better term, thread the needle.
But I just think, in terms of future planning, I mean, I can imagine that these folks, if they're asking for this easement, they must have some idea if they were going to do something that intersection, just how close they would get to that house. I mean, I don't, yeah.
I mean, again, as the comment was made, they might be able to do any widening they do entirely within the right of way. We just don't know because we haven't engineered it.
Their comment was that it's going to be very much like Albuquerque, the intersection of Albuquerque. They had to work within the right of way there, and they made it work. And they said it's going to be basically identical to that. They're going to have to try to realign Corning Road to get it so that that's a 90-degree angle.
Okay.
Which means it may be a taking down the road to accomplish that on the opposite side. But their thoughts are that they would be doing the same thing that they did on Albuquerque, and they made it work inside the right of way. That was their comment at the meeting.
Did they have to do a taking when they did the Albuquerque turning lane? Did they from 3A to turn onto Albuquerque? Did they have to take?
My understanding is
private
no. They didn't have to do any taking. They fit it all in. I said it was a challenge, but they fit it all in.
Okay.
And what the state had mentioned about the 15 feet is that if they're not going to add a bypass lane all on our side of the street or 12 feet of pavement going right up towards the house, if they were going to add either a bypass lane or else a center turn lane or something like you have at Albuquerque, they may be 5 feet, 7 feet of a little extra pavement, which include the shoulder. What they wanted the additional footage is so that for maintenance or snow going down and all that kind of stuff, so it's all there. So although we said it's a road widening easement, they're going to give us the language of what their easements are, but it's more of a road widening and maintenance easement both. So there would never be a 12-foot paved lane from the edge of pavement now towards the house, even though we're putting a 15-foot easement in there.
And so they're providing you with some suggested language for the easement?
They're going to give us an easement that they will accept, language that they will accept.
I would like to see that if we could get, I don't know when they're going to do that, but I think that would be a good piece of information for us to have.
It didn't sound like it was going to be too long. It sounded like they already had the language. It's just a matter of giving it to us. So we haven't seen it yet.
So you're totally removing the retaining wall? You're not just moving that back?
That was one of their requests, is that that retaining wall doesn't really do anything. They just like to see it removed, and we said that wouldn't be an issue, I mean, from our standpoint.
It won't be within the 15 feet. If it makes more sense, just from to have it be a landscape feature in front of the house, it's just the 15 feet we give them, it's not going to be in there anymore. Right now, it's going to even be further back than that. So if it ends up being 3 or 4 feet off the house, it may get moved back, but it won't be within the 15 feet.
there still be a wall there?
We're gonna do something.
It'd probably be
landscaping.
something because the
Yeah,
house is built up a little bit.
Okay, because I think I've seen it where that wall has been hit by cars, so I wouldn't want, like, I would hope that there's some barrier there to prevent them from hitting the house. There's that, but.
Jay, do you have any comments, further comments, any suggestions?
No, I think we've run the gamut.
Okay. All righty then.
Was there any update? Isn't the Conservation Commission, are they still looking at moving the barn?
I think that is in discussion with conservation as far as I can
This-
know. And I
this
think there's a
Thursday.
meeting this
This Thursday.
Thursday, so we'll see. Okay. All right, so I think we're gonna continue.
Just a quick.
Yeah,
comment,
go
too.
ahead.
There is another utility building down there that we have no use for. I don't know if the town needs it in any of their parks or
The
anything like
one
that.
further to the,
We just
down
don't-
the hill, yeah.
And if the town would like that building for something, we're gonna not utilize it. So if the town needs it anywhere on any of their ball fields or anything like that, it's I don't know how difficult it would be to move, but you're welcome to it.
Okay. Well, maybe that's a discussion for conservation or the Rec Commission or
Yeah,
Board of Selectmen or
I
something.
hate putting anything in a dumpster.
Yeah.
Take that big arena barn.
You're welcome to that as well.
It's a nice one.
Yeah, I mean, we unfortunately, we don't have a spot for it.
Okay. All right, so I guess we will continue this hearing to a date and time certain.
May 3rd would be the next.
May
available.
3rd. And I guess if we could have maybe the traffic engineer at that meeting, that might be helpful.
I'll bring the landscape planner. as
And the landscape stuff. And as I said, the stuff that we talked about tonight, the landscaping, the imaging and, and also too, I mean, like I said, and it is important, I think it needs more emphasis, is the character of the, just keeping that in the back of the mind is the character of the town. I think that's important. And also the abutters issue, I think on Temple is something to also keep in mind as well. Because I think that is going to be a big concern. So with that said, and Jay, you'll have those plans. You'll probably have an opportunity to review them. Lou Karen will probably be here at that meeting as well.
He's planning on.
Mr. Blackwell, did you have any comments or anything tonight that you wanted to add, or you're good? Okay, all right. Okay, so May 3rd at 7 p.m. That is our next meeting for this.
Meeting,
What's that?
next open, we have an April 19th meeting, but that agenda is full.
Right, so that will be the one for May 3rd will be the next meeting for this site. So I'll entertain a motion that we continue this to May 3rd, at 7 o'clock here in Town Hall Planning Board meeting with a traffic engineer present for that meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Curtis. I have a second by Ron. Is there any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 7-0-0.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good evening. Okay, next item on the agenda, committee reports. Any reports from any committees? I guess I'll start with you, Kim.
Start with me, huh? The next Board of Selectmen meeting will be held on Monday, April 11th, 6:30 PM here at the Town Hall. The biggest topic of the Board of Selectmen has been how we're going to use the COVID ARPA funds and what mechanism we're going to use to decide what priority or projects are chosen at the priority. And that was decided at that meeting that it would primarily, I think it's going to go through the capital improvement plan process.
Seems to be where it's going.
Yep, and then they will prioritize the projects and then get them back to the Board of Selectmen. Last night was the capital improvement plan committee meeting where that was reinstated. And so we do have a current plan, and I think NRPC has been hired to actually write the report that goes with the spreadsheet that we see on our website. Okay, those capital improvement plan committee meetings will be every Monday night at 6 o'clock. Not every Monday night, every first Monday night of the month. Better not be every Monday. At 6 o'clock here at the town hall. As far as NRPC, we have the next full commissioner meeting, which meets quarterly on Wednesday, June 15th, 2022. That'll be at 30 Temple Street in Nashua. That's all I have.
Great. I did attend the Lower Merrimack Local River Advisory Committee last Thursday. They did meet at Nashua City Hall. There was a project on the agenda, alteration of terrain, and I think stormwater management for Merrimack. Town of Merrimack has that project going on for a warehouse. So they came in with their engineer and we had to review it, basically. We also had a visit from NRPC about the Merrimack River corridor management plan. That was a presentation given. And also the Merrimack River Watershed Council, which has a New Hampshire contingent to it now up in the Conservation Center in Concord. So they gave their presentation. So it was very interesting.
I'm glad to hear that because we are most of the watersheds.
Yes, absolutely. Also, Conservation is meeting this Thursday, 7 p.m. here in Town Hall. And as Kim alluded, we had our first Capital Improvement Committee meeting last night for 2022. So we're moving forward in that regard. Anything for you, Kate? I guess is the Budget Committee's meeting? Right?
The budget committee met.
Oh, okay.
Just like the initial, welcome back sort of meeting. So no real news there. I just had a question about we had talked about at the end of last year about continuing to look at the northern commercial zone and considering some sort of village overlay or multi-use or something like that.
Right.
I think we still need to revisit it, whether or not we end up moving anything forward or not. I just don't want that to completely fall off the radar.
Okay.
And it end up, being November and we're scrambling. So.
Well, we can probably.
There's too much going on. Maybe
Yeah.
it's the summer or something. Look at
Maybe. I mean,
workshops.
we can see where
Yeah, I think our next couple of meetings are booked, but after that, maybe we'll get
a start on that.
Yeah.
Another thing we probably want to do too is look at, I think Troy mentioned it last night, the stormwater management stuff for town MS4. That's kind of important. So, and maybe that's something. And also the impact fees. So those things I think I should be put on the agenda. So I think that's important.
I have those reports I can send. I'll send everybody
Okay.
the original reports.
Yes.
For that, it's heavy reading.
Yes, it is.
You're gonna want to at least even devote time to skimming it.
Yeah,
Whether you
yeah.
can really fully read it and digest it.
Very much so.
So I'll send those out.
Okay, thank you. The approval of the February 15th and March 1st, 2022 minutes. Did anyone have an opportunity to take a look at those and have any questions about them?
I did fill in the March 1st, the question I had on who made the motion. I think when I fill it in and Drive, it automatically populates your site, I'm hoping.
It did. Yeah,
Did?
I checked. Yeah.
Good.
So that was yes, that motion. So you made that motion, right, Jim?
I have no idea.
It was page 5. Let me see.
Well, were you present? Let's see. Yes, he was present. So he must have been.
Definitely present, but
Well, you never know.
All the tape.
There's somebody on this side. But the camera wasn't. Couldn't see who was speaking because the camera was pointed like over here.
Oh.
Have to watch
So-
the video.
We did. Trust me, we watched the video.
I tried. So,
If anybody doesn't have any questions, if you want to approve them all, both March and February, we can do that, or one at a
Sure.
time.
Make a motion to approve both minutes.
All right, we have a motion by James. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Sam. Do we have any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the February 15th and March 1st, 2022 minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstained, motion passes 7-0-0. Okay. Any other business? Kim?
Why do you smile when you? We had also talked about, I know our agenda's getting full, but the traffic calming measure workshop on Albuquerque. I'm starting to see postings about talent, maybe. Yeah, and Albuquerque also, maybe we need another discussion on painting sidewalks, not sidewalks, crosswalks in near the school. Maybe another discussion on that. So it looks like you're saying next week is booked. I haven't seen the agenda yet, but
Well-
we just found May 3rd is filling up.
Second meeting in May?
Second meeting in May?
Yeah,
Do
maybe
we
could do
have,
a
I thought I
workshop.
saw it in my calendar as a workshop, but maybe I'm wrong.
Where,
If we have availability, sure.
second meeting in May, yeah.
So when do we, I think the best, I will reach out to Jason Brennan. I don't have that posting where I saw that happening on Facebook.
About what?
Maybe Jason Brennan can look up who it was and reach out. We're going to make this a public agenda item, the workshop, whenever we decide to do this.
Yeah.
And just get the word out if people want to show.
Maybe you
Right,
could,
post it on Facebook.
you could post it that the speed limit was going to reduce, and then you get a lot of people in here.
There you go. That's right.
To one,
So when do we tentatively have that scheduled for? I don't want
The
to,
second meeting in May, so that would be
17th.
April.
17th.
17th, right.
And that's for looking at the entirety of Albuquerque.
Well, whatever you want as a workshop, let me know.
okay.
I did sit out. I'm glad you brought that up, Kim, because I sat at watching the high schoolers coming and going from school just to see where they were crossing, and I know that will change as as kids graduate and other kids come in. But there were a few spots that the issue wasn't that the biggest issue is that the speed limit, because of the school zone, slows down. So that means all those cars, there's no brakes in the cars traveling in front of the school during the entirety of that school zone for a good 5 or 10 minutes. And when you're a student trying to get into school, those 5 minutes matter, whether you're going to be late or not. So they had to wait for cars, like some car to stop, and then for the car going the opposite direction to hopefully notice that this one person was holding up traffic, and then you don't know if somebody's going to come around behind you to the right, because there are some spaces there where there's enough shoulder that you can go around the person. So that was the issue with crossing the street inside that school zone, is there's just no breaks in
Well,
traffic.
that would be
because
perfect for a crosswalk then, because it's
Right.
mandatory
Right.
state.
Yeah, and we have
law
no
to stop.
crosswalks.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering is, do we need to wait for this workshop for the planning board to suggest to the board of selectmen, can we at least get a crosswalk in the school zone somewhere? Only because end of May, school's going to be out by the time that were to get painted.
you have to talk to the school board probably, right?
Well, I think that's an
Yeah,
interesting
Board of
question
Selectmen.
because,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just selectmen.
Well, when Steve Weber sat in, I think with somebody, maybe it was, who was the selectman at the time? Was it that sat here? Kevin Lynch, but I think Steve Weber sat in for him one of the meetings. He didn't seem to think paint was an expensive thing. It's obviously, but
Well, if you have a crosswalk, it's mandatory state law.
no,
to
I
stop.
agree, but I don't know if we need to talk to the school board before.
It's
I think that's
town road.
public safety under this.
Town road.
Just trying to be courteous, keep everybody involved.
It certainly couldn't hurt to get input as to the location, but it is up to the town.
So do
We
you
did
want me
call
to
that
bring,
out in master
when is our next meeting? I just said it, the 11th or something? Would you like me to bring it up that we were going to discuss it, or maybe make a recommendation for it? And if they have anything they want me to bring back here before we talk about
Good
that?
idea.
yeah.
All right, let me put that on the list.
discussion item. Just want to say to everybody, great job. All of our zoning amendments passed. All the hard work that you guys put into that paid off. So kudos to you guys. And thanks you to Jay and everybody for all the work that you did on that. So that's good.
Hopefully that means we're on the right track.
Yes. I did sign up for the zoning conference. That's April 30th, I think. And I think there's another one in May. I forget the date.
Soon after.
Yeah, soon after. It's free. So you just go on to the computer and sign up, and it's remote. So you guys can look at it, Zoom it or whatever.
And as has been noted, if you don't want to, take the time to devote your Saturday, if you sign up, you're going to get the link anyway,
Yeah,
so you can
right.
watch it later.
So there you go. Can still have your Saturday and
So there's Saturday. Watch it. in
watch it
pieces.
another time. The NRPC is having their forum, I think, May 11th
May 11th.
at the La Bella Winery in Amherst.
Yeah.
So if anyone's interested in going to that, certainly you're welcome. I think I will be going to that. So, and I think that's everything I have. Anything from you, Jay? Anything else, Jay?
No.
Joan, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Okay. And no one else has anything.
I do have another.
Oh, you do?
That's why you always give me that look. You said the kids walk to the high school from is it a 5-mile radius or a 2.5-mile radius? Don't they walk though?
I have no
I
idea.
thought it was 2 for high school and 1 for the others, but I'm not sure. I'd have to verify that.
I think when I way back rode the car down, it went past the horse farm. It got to that intersection. What is it? Which one is it? Where the stop signs are on Albuquerque. The Talent or Pinecrest, I forget.
Oh,
And it
Pinecrest.
even went past that.
Pinecrest.
So it's a long walk for kids, and that is a major road, so that might be another.
Yeah, there should be a crosswalk at
Crosswalk.
Pinecrest.
Okay. That's it, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm closing any other business. So
Just want to make sure when I talk.
you're out of luck. No.
What the radius is.
Well, again, I don't have adjourn on my.
Yes, turn
you
it-
did.
Oh, do?
Page
It's on
on that.
page 2? or-
Yes, quite make it.
Maybe I didn't get the last page. Oh, okay, so they got it this time. All right. Well, anyway, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
I doubt there's any discussion, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstain, motion passes 700. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you on the 19th.